Gives me great pleasure. The masked man himself. Where's Tonto? Douglas Taylor.
What do you mean we? Okay. Well, yes, I'm Doug Taylor, and I come to you today with a heavy heart. On February 22nd, a literary icon, poet, publisher, and political dissident, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, died, just 1 month short of his 102nd birthday. Yeah, 1 month short. He founded the City Lights Booksellers and Publishers in 1953, which quickly became a literary meeting place from which he published, inspired, and nurtured generations of San Francisco's artists and writers. Kind of what Hayden Wayne is doing here at the Karpeles Museum. By the way, in 2001, the bookstore was designated a historic landmark. Called the spiritual godfather of the Beat generation, he said, if anything, I was the last of the Bohemians rather than the first of the Beats. In his honor, I would like to read for you a poem of his that is kind of in line with the season, tomorrow being Easter. This poem's title is its first line. So I give to you Sometime During Infinity During Eternity by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Sometime during eternity, some guys show up, and one of them, who shows up real late, is a kind of carpenter from some square-type place in Galilee. And he starts wailing and claiming he is hip to who made heaven and earth, and that the cat who really laid it on us was his dad. And moreover, he adds, it's all written down on some scroll-type parchments, which some henchmen leave laying around the Dead Sea somewhere a long time ago, and which you won't even find for a couple of thousand years or so, or at least 1,947 of them to be exact. And even then, nobody really believes them or me, for that matter. You're hot, they tell him, and they cool him. They stretch him on a tree to cool. And everybody after that is always making models of this tree with him hung up, and always crooning his name and calling him down to come and sit in on their combo, as if he's the king cat who's got to blow, or they can't quite make it. Only he don't come down from his tree. He just hang there on his tree, looking real peated out and real cool. And also, according to a roundup of late world news from the usual unreliable sources, real dead.
Wow.
We're gonna miss you, Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Yeah. So, let me throw one of mine at you. Whoops. This is called Old Flat Top. The word was riding on the wind. It rustled through the trees, but not one of them could hear it. They only heard the breeze. The truth sat by their side. Not one of them saw him there. They only saw the curl and luster of disheveled hair. His fragrance was of frankincense. They didn't seem to care. The aroma wafted in the air, wafted around their heads to dissipate in the air. He held them in his mighty arms and squeezed them like a bear until their breath escaped from them, expiring in a solemn prayer. Bitter, sour, salty, sweet, his taste was everywhere. But the things he said and did, any less they could not care. By the time they looked for him, he was no longer there. Lawrence Ferlinghetti once said of poetry, and I want to get this right, every great poem fulfills the longing and puts life back together. A poem should arise to ecstasy somewhere between speech and song. I am particularly fond of the between speech and song part because I have always believed that poetry was intended to be spoken and heard as much, if not more, than printed and read. So, I'm going to read to you a poem by a young man, a young artist, a young poet. When I first read this poem, I had a feeling that I had about him and his work more than 50 years ago. In 1964, I was working, doing the lights at a nightclub in the village, West Village, called Cafe A Go-Go. And a young comedian joined our ranks. And when I first heard his act, I said, that kid's got talent. He's going to go places. And I was right about him. He turned out to be Richard Pryor. I think I'm right about this guy too. The poem doesn't have a title per se. It's kind of set up like a monologue from a play. So his name is Moab Dyer, so I'd call it the Moab Dyer poem. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And this, I hope, gives the listeners an understanding of the feeling, of the despair of a young person that exists in Milwaukee. I want you to see beyond the bottles being thrown. I want you to see beyond the anger and see a young man on his hands and knees looking up at the heavens, not knowing if God exists, on a street called Burley in Milwaukee. And he says, it's like I'm sitting in a jail cell. Lord, listen to me. It's like I'm sitting in a jail cell. Listen to me, God. It's like I'm sitting in a jail cell with invisible bars, waiting on death row, counting down the days, because I know they're coming. You see, I know they're coming. Them police, them jealous dudes and chicks, they're all coming. And it wasn't supposed to be like this. You see, Lord, they never told me you were in me. They never told me you were always there. And so, in turn, I believed what I saw. And what I saw was a daddy that was never around, and a mama that was always crying because we were always broke. When there was money outside, and rats and roaches, and pissy mattresses me and my brother slept on. When there was money outside, my teachers told me I had to wait 12 years to get paid. You see, my teachers told me I had to wait 12 years to get paid, while all of them got paid off me right now, whether I learned or not. When there was money outside. And what was I supposed to do? They never told me you were in me, God. They never told me you were always there. And how was I supposed to know that being created in your image and your likeness meant if you made the earth, Lord, I could make my own business. And if you made the sun, I could make more than just babies. More than just babies, but buildings and networks. And busting guns wasn't the only way to get access to your power, Lord. And shaking down those dudes on the street for this dope money was not the only way to get access to your power, Lord. And how was I supposed to know? And how was I supposed to know that downing shots of Hennessy and smoking weed wasn't the only way to get through this and go to heaven? That I could have gotten down on all four and talked to you, Lord. They never told me you were in me. They never told me you were always there. And how was I supposed to know that every time Mama was like, stay in school, baby, stay off those streets, that was you, Lord. And every misdemeanor charge that I beat, that was you, Lord. And every felony charge that I beat, that was you, Lord. And when those bullets missed me, when I was on the street, on the block, doing wrong, that was you, Lord. And when my boy lay there in that casket, cold and lifeless, that was like you telling me he would be me if I didn't change. And now I've fallen. My time is up. I know they're coming. And I don't even know if you listen to kids like us, Lord. Do you even care about kids like us, Lord? But I know now what I didn't know then. And it took me the fall to see the light. You were always in me. You were always there. Forgive me, Lord, for I knew not what I was doing to myself. Please, send me somebody, a voice, maybe from across the nation, a sympathetic voice that understands that I need to be taught, something that I've never been taught before. Anybody in humanity that can teach me to love me. Teach me to love me. Teach me to love me. Thank you. So was I right or was I right? This, for me, this poem fulfills a longing and puts back life together and rises to ecstasy. And on that note, I would like to share with you a poem that was inspired, a poem of mine that was inspired by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Matter of fact, I usually introduce this poem by saying, Lawrence Ferlinghetti wrote a poem called I Am Waiting. So I wrote a poem called I Too Am Waiting. I'm waiting for my number to come up. And I'm waiting for that, wake up everybody, no more sleeping in bed, morning. And I'm waiting for the no child to ever have to go to bed hungry. And I'm waiting for clean air and pure water, non-contaminated food, affordable, decent housing, a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, to be added to the list of human rights, being available for everybody. And I am waiting for the return of Robin Hood to liberate the spoils of the wealthy and return them to the poor. And I am waiting for a system that does not allow the loser of an election to win and still call itself democracy. And I'm waiting for the end of social welfare for the wealthy and rugged individualism for the rest of us. And I am perpetually awaiting the rebirth of a great awakening. I'm waiting for the second coming of spirituality. And I'm waiting for compassion to sweep through the hearts of the greedy, that they may know what satisfaction feels like, and peace of gratitude. And I'm waiting for the public to cease living vicariously through the lives of celebrities, so that they may let the music of their own souls be played. And I'm waiting for public servants to start serving the public and stop serving themselves and their corporate masters. And I'm waiting for somebody to repair the crack in the Liberty Bell. Too many have been falling through. And I'm waiting for love to fill the hearts of politicians, that the milk of human kindness may flow through governments. And I'm waiting for we the people to be so deceived, devaluated, discriminated, disrespected, disappointed, and disenfranchised by corporate robber barons that they wise up and rise up to revolt. Because right now, their indifferent ignorance is revolting. And I'm continuously awaiting for the return of the joy of innocence on that great awakening morning. I'm waiting for the right number to come up, that there may be an answer. And I'm waiting for someone to tell me if con is the opposite of pro, does that mean that Congress is the opposite of progress? Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, yes, I did. And I'm waiting for the end of a healthcare system designed to squeeze profits out of the ill and indigent by holding their health hostage for a ransom that they can never pay. And I'm waiting for the return of common sense, if it really does still exist, or reasonable flexibility. I'm waiting for America to stop claiming to be a champion of democracy while supporting draconian dictatorships to further its own interests. And I'm waiting for the return of democracy right here in America. And let's get it right this time, y'all. And I'm waiting for a police force that not only understands, but respects the rule of law and the Constitution. A police force that will protect and serve not only the privileged few, but all the people. For the public can be in no greater danger than for the police to consider themselves above the law. I'm waiting for the citizens of the world to hold their governments accountable for all atrocities committed in their name. And I am waiting, breathlessly waiting, for the pernicious, predatory, private banking system to shrivel up and give way to public banking. And I am awaiting, perpetually and forever awaiting, for that glorious day of awakening. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Well, I think that's about it for me for today. But I do want to, before I leave, I do want to ask you guys a question, because I know there's a lot of intelligence out there. This is a question that's been driving me around the twist for weeks and weeks and weeks. Here it is. Does a backward poet write in verse? Or does he write in reverse? Mind-boggling, isn't it? Well, this is, just let me start by saying, this is a month of celebration, and we've got Poetry Month, National Poetry Month. We've got Easter Sunday tomorrow. We've got Passover. We've got Ramadan. So whichever you embrace, whatever you embrace, I hope that it's happy for you and that it's enjoyable. And to leave you all wishing you this: love, prosperity, and peace. Later. Thank you.